Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel.
People are perplexed because they don't think about medicine, they think about working, and have always had health as you grow up. But you don't realize you're becoming, every decade, you're a different type of person, if and only because of these chemical compounds we ingest from foods that they have to keep them on the shelves longer. And the body wasn't designed to process and break down all of these chemical compounds, especially it can sneak up, like as you posted or pointed out, you can have these things sneak into you with pesticides in the wine. That who would know to watch out for that? But then you've got it inside of you.
No, you're 100% correct, Larry. And we would have not have known that unless we collected data. So we had about 4,000 or 5,000 patients come through in the last 4 years since we started Fountain Life. And it turns out that we were doing toxin testing. And you won't believe some of the toxins we're finding. Number one, bisphenol A in plastics. And there was a recent article published in the New England Journal of Medicine looking at blood clots, and they cut open the clot, and guess what was inside? Microplastics. So what? Why do you think so many people are having this toxin plastic in their body? So we started investigating. Well, these water bottles that are made out of plastic. So when they get heated up to a certain degree, they're coming in these trucks across the country. It gets to 120 degrees inside the truck. It melts that plastic. It goes into the water. Same thing with these pots and pans. The Teflon pots and pans, it goes into the food, the chemicals in the pans. What about chemicals in children pajamas that babies are wearing as they're growing up? They're fire retardant because they spray the clothing with fire retardant chemicals. Guess where that goes into? The skin of little babies. By the time they're older, they're filled with chemicals. And we call these forever chemicals. And if you just Googled forever chemicals, you'll see it. They're called PFOS, PFAS. It's incredible how many people are toxic with environmental chemicals. If you walk on a golf course, the insecticides on the grass goes into your feet, goes into your body. And then you wonder, why do I have brain fog? Why do I keep forgetting things? How come I'm not as sharp as I used to? Why don't I feel right? Why do I ache? Well, let's get a toxin test and find out what toxins you have in your body. The liver is your detoxer. Now, how many people do you know belong to these clubs, whether it's a golf club or whatever club, and you hang around with the people and they like to drink, then you have to drink because you're with them. So that's a big problem in some of these locations in Florida with all these clubs. And I went the other day and everybody was in the bar drinking. It's good to socialize, and socialize is very important. But you have to really say, okay, you can't drink 5 drinks a day, 5 days a week, and that's 60 drinks a week. I'll tell you a story in a minute about a patient of mine who was doing that. But alcohol affects your liver, slows down detoxification. So let all these chemicals now get in there. So we have a whole detox protocol, phase 1 and phase 2 detox to protect your liver. And the goal is first find out why are you feeling this way. And then when we find out it's a toxin, we remove that. Believe it or not, heavy metals are a big deal too. We're finding out that people have all these dental amalgams, the silver linings made with mercury in your mouth. And over the years, it starts leaching out mercury. And there was a big artist rendition in the 1700s of a painting, Mad as a Hatter, and it was a guy with mercury poisoning. So mercury is a heavy metal, lead's another heavy metal. Unfortunately, fish in these waters with all the plastic being dumped are getting all these chemicals in the fish. All the mercury is going in the fish, and we're eating the fish. So when you go to a restaurant, oh yeah, we have farm raised. Everyone thinks farm raised is great.
Yeah.
Farm raised is not great because they want to make these fish big to make money. So what do? They inject them with antibiotics so they don't get sick. They inject them with steroids so they get bigger. Now, humans are eating a fish with steroids or a cow with steroids, a cow with antibiotics or fish with antibiotics. And what are they getting? They're getting everything that was in the fish or cow into them. Now their immune system, their endocrine system is all disrupted. These are called endocrine disruptors. You must measure the amount of toxins in your body today. And that's why people are getting sick at such a young age, lymphoma and cancers from these toxins. So you got to put everything together. But I want to shift a little bit to neurological health. We spoke about cardiacs. Let's talk about neurological health. I don't know if you know this fact, but about 50 million people every year, about 10 million new cases every year, but about 50 million 50 million people worldwide have dementia. 1 in 10 people over 65 have dementia. 30% of people over 80 will have dementia. And what about all this Parkinson's disease? Over 90,000 people are now getting diagnosed every year with Parkinson's. We now believe Parkinson's is an inflammation on the covering of the brain called the glia, the microglia. So the glia that covers your brain, it's like a housekeeper. When you sleep at night, it cleans your brain. You wake up refreshed. As we get older, it starts attacking our brain, and we're not refreshed. And that term, brain fog. And a lot of this, believe it or not, comes from inflammation. And we're going back to belly fat, highly inflammatory. So these are certain things that we actually look at. We do special scanning of the brain. There's new biomarkers that can predict dementia 10 years in advance. So we're looking at those biomarkers. We also look at cancer tests in the blood. That cancer gives a signal years before you get cancer. So when you combine a whole body MRI and you combine this cancer blood test called liquid biopsy, you can find cancer early in stage 1. And if you find it in stage 1, the amount of cure is so much more rapid than it would if you find it in stage 4. So these are some of the things that we look at, and those are some of the drivers. But now with AI, we can do what's called a digital twin. I can make a virtual you, Larry, and try all these things on your virtual digital twin and bring it back to you and say, here's what you need to do.
Wow. What would you say for people who are listening to this? And it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're hearing these terms and you're hearing all this stuff and you're like, what can I do? Talk about what people, if we were to try and give some hope for people, it would be nice if everybody could get to your clinic. Where is the clinic, by the way?
We have 4 clinics right now. Our clinics are in New York, Orlando, Naples, and Frisco, Texas. But we're opening up 25 new locations in the next 6 years. And the goal is to come in, spend 3 or 4 hours, get an upload, do about 15 different tests. We review the results in 2 to 4 weeks to go over the imaging and then the blood tests and so on. And we come up with a goal, what your plan would be. Some people want to say, look, I can't sleep well. I want to feel better, or I need more muscle mass, or I have too much belly fat, or I'm tired, or I'm worried about my mind, or my mother had pancreatic cancer. I don't want to get pancreatic cancer. Yeah. Or my father had Alzheimer's dementia and Parkinson's. I don't want to get that. 7% is genetically related. 93% is lifestyle. We can change you by using what's called epigenetic modification. If you think of your light switch, I can turn that on and off. Your light bulb is your genetics. I can now turn on and off genes using what was called epigenetic modification. So when we find something, we can fix it.
Let's make sure that gets in their head, just that piece. What percent is genetics and what percent can be fixed?
7% is genetics. And these facts are from Eric Verdin, who's the CEO of the Buck Institute, the largest anti-aging or age management facility in the country.
And can I interrupt you and insert here? When people listen now to Dr. Shapiro talking, understand that these things, if you have the genetics, you can't just say this is a death sentence. You don't have cancer in your family, you have Alzheimer's in your family, or you got markers for this. It's a death sentence. There are very little death sentences you can, because that's just 7% of it. Like he said, switch on, switch off. So you can take charge of your life and start sending yourself in the right directions.
You're right, Larry. A lot of people think, you know what? My dad died at 50. I'm going to probably die at 50. Let me not do anything. That's wrong. I see more and more people today saying, listen, my dad died at 50. I don't want to die at 50. I want to live a long time. So the goal is to, some people are like, why are you going to do all these testing? You're going to find something. Yeah. I mean, are you kidding me? That's the whole idea. You want to find it early and you want to stop it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to scale this to the world. Yeah. So yesterday I was at an event in Miami with Sam Nazarian, he owns SBE Entertainment, partnered with Mark Anthony, the singer. Tony Robbins was there. Peter Diamandis was there. Richard Atias was there. And Simon Gibertoni, the CEO of La Prairie. And we're setting up a whole new longevity wellness clinics across the world, in the US and outside the US, where people would come to these locations and get treated and evaluated. So the first thing is to find out what you have, and then the newer therapeutic options. And that's where the exosome comes in. And I know that you're a big fan of exosomes done right. They're amazing. and I'm a big fan of them as well. I get them 4 times a year. I get my own exosomes. So what I do is I draw my blood like PRP. I send it to the lab, and they look under a microscope to make sure it's an exosome. And we do that by what's called cell surface receptors. And there's certain ones that you can tell that's an exosome. And then they concentrate them with a special centrifuge. And then I get it sent back to the office with 400 billion of these exosomes in 1 ml. And now I'm biobanking my microRNA basically, and I'm getting it back. I can get it in my joint, my shoulder if it's injured, my knee, my hip. I can get it in my neck, my back, or I could do IV. This is like second generation PRP. It's unbelievable what it does. But I do this thing 4 times a year. I also get stem cells outside the US. I do that once a year in Costa Rica. There's a location that we looked at. We went to 8 different countries to find out the best location. So I think it's important. For me, I need to try everything. And a lot of the people I work with, they're also doing these things.
Yeah.
Ben Field, Armstrong. I mean, everyone is doing this. If you look at some of these CEOs of companies now, you notice, wow, they're looking stronger. They're looking bigger. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. He's difference in his body. They're not frail. They're not getting frail. Why are people not getting frail? Because you have to do something about it.
Right.
You need exercise after a certain age. You must eat better. You can't have the sugars. It's all about sleeping. You need to sleep.
I'd like to thank you for listening to part 2 of this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. Timing is everything. You may feel that now is the time to get moving forward so you can do something even greater with your life. Now, if that sounds like you, I've got a free training video to show you how that transformation can take place. Getting introduced to how the cycle of success works has been a major transforming event for so many current $1 million earners. And that's exactly what this video is all about. And yes, it's completely free. Join us at the video at weidelonwinning.com. And thanks for being part of our community.